they couldn't see that the issue was, here's government, albeit local government, telling you that you don't have the right to ride a motorcycle on a public highway. I mean, that should just bother the daylights out of anybody. And of course, one of the scary things, we weren't surprised by it, but it was unsettling when it happened. Local trial court said, yes, you do not have a constitutional right to ride a motorcycle. And when we got that ruling, we absolutely had to appeal it. It was, even my own brother has a shop said, George, I don't see why you're wasting all your time on this. They know they can't get by with it. Well, they had gotten by with it for 20 years, from 1966 to 1986. That ordinance was on the books and being enforced. So the good thing about taking on that case when we did was that in October of 86, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the state seatbelt law, and in doing so said that it might be possible for motorcycle helmet laws to be constitutional, which would have changed an earlier ruling the court made back in 1969. So when they did that, they basically opened the floodgates. And we had been doing so much organization up and down the state, creating just a tremendous database of motorcycle organizations and individuals, that we were able to put the Abate Motorcycle Organization together. We'd had several chapters developed at that time, but we were able to put the Abate Motorcycle Organization, the state organization, together by December of 1986. And we stopped the helmet bills offered both in the Senate and the House that January. Nobody thought it could be done. We weren't even sure it could be done, but we knew we had to try. It was truly a hat trick. It was something that nobody expected, and we have been growing since then, not necessarily in numbers, but in sophistication and strength. And I certainly encourage other interested groups, whether your focus is on the Second Amendment, whether your focus is on transportation rights like we are, or any similar situation, to not just bellyache about it, or don't expect somebody else to do your work for you. This nation was not formed by people sitting back and letting other people do their work for them. It was done by people that cared enough to make a difference, or at least try to make a difference. Wait a minute, where's my soapbox? Well, it is Sunday, so I guess it's okay if I preach, right?
Hey, that's what we're here for. We're here to speak about all kinds of different stuff, from motorcycles to religion to conservative, political ideas, and that's why we're here. And I agree, everyone needs to be proactive, not sit back and be a keyboard artist, but get out there and get with your clubs, be proactive with them, because that's what we are, numbers and strength.
I think you guys both make a good point in that, you've got to get out there as an individual and start speaking your mind and fighting for your rights. If not, some organizations that are more vocal but maybe don't have the size, the constituency, are going to make the rules, and that's not where you want to be. You want to be on the side that makes rules that are more favorable to you, and not living by rules that are forced on you by some other organization just because they're more vocal.
I want to get back to that little deal you're talking about Chicago there, George, because Chicago is this. Let me know if I'm correct about this, but if they stop you and they'll check your exhaust and they'll check the numbers, and if those numbers don't match what the bike that you have is as far as the stock exhaust, they're wanting to give you a ticket. Is that correct?
That's what the ordinance proposal was, and I'm not 100% sure what the current status on that is. I don't know if they've ever enforced that. I don't know if that's been adopted by the city council. but they were pushing for that very strongly. And when I reviewed it, I realized that not only would that eliminate the possibility of having any aftermarket exhaust system, which, quite frankly, is a serious consideration for people like us, where the only exhaust system I can put on a 1956 Harley KHK is an aftermarket system. Harley just doesn't make that system anymore. And when they did make the system, they didn't stamp any numbers on it. It was, the people, that's one of the reasons you have to be involved in government, because the people that make the laws cannot be expected to know everything. They need our help. They just don't need us to bellyache. They need us to advise them so that we can help them do a better job, where our expertise in combination with theirs ends up with a better result. The person that was pushing for this ordinance in Chicago simply didn't understand what was going on. All he knew is that he had at least one constituent that was complaining about noise. And he thought, well, I've got to do something to show my constituent that I belong in office, so I've got to do something. Well, he didn't know what to do, but he came up with something. And at first blush, it may sound like, oh, this guy's making an important stand. Well, if you're making a foolish stand, it's not that important. It's just foolish. And we've offered to work with him before, and this particular person didn't even return our telephone calls. Wouldn't even discuss the issues with us.
Her name wasn't Mary, was it?
We
Sorry. I know all about Mary.
Mary Flowers?
Name. Yeah, I know Mary Flowers. Yeah.
Oh, you get to.
So went head to head with her on AMA. So a few times at the Capitol. So, and she can't even pronounce.
Oh, really? Was she able to keep her head?
Instead of Polaris, Kawasaki, Suzuki, she couldn't even pronounce the names. And there she's trying to keep anyone from 16 years or younger riding a four-wheeler, even being a passenger on one. And that was shot down, unanimously. We knocked it down. They appealed it. I mean, it was just, but who knows whether she'll come back on it again someday. So I'm sure she will. But it was probably some little kid, I think, got on somebody's four-wheeler and got hurt really bad, and probably had no business on that four-wheeler, really. I mean, everybody.
I know exactly.
Yeah, you probably know the situation.
Yeah, I know the person that. Oh yeah, I know the person that got hurt. I know what happened. I know how it was brought to Mary's attention, and it wasn't a constituent of Mary's. It was a secretary whose niece got injured as a passenger on a ATV.
There you go. And that girl was probably never taught how to ride it right in the first place, was she?
Well, she was a teenager.
Okay.
It was very likely that the driver and the passenger both weren't being as careful as they should have been, because there's nothing inherently dangerous in the machine if it's used correctly.
Yep.
And one of the important things is that the injured party in this case was not pushing for the law. It was this injured party's aunt that complained to a Chicago legislator who knew nothing about ATVs, and it's altogether possible that there's nobody in her district that even rides an ATV, and decided that she'd get involved to make the world safer by making it more restrictive. We all recognize if we were kept in padded rooms surrounded by bubble wrap, that we're less likely to get hurt. Yep. We're less likely to have quality lives, but we're less likely to get hurt physically.
Yeah, and that's a whole new story, too. We'll go on that later on about the playgrounds and them getting rid of them at the schools, too, someday. But I've always wondered what the story was behind that, and I never did hear. All I knew it was somebody that she'd known or something, and that's kind of the way it went.
Yep. And I mean, this is something like, you know, I even though Mary had mentioned the gal's name in trying to name the law, there's no sense in us trying to mention her name on the radio here. Mary Flowers is a public official. We can say anything we want about her, hopefully, well, anything that's true about her. But as far as other parties, I think they deserve their privacy. But now you know the background of what caused this legislator to take on an issue like this, even though it had nothing to do with her constituency.
Yeah, well, thank you for explaining that to me.
Well, and I think this is a good case of a vocal minority getting the attention of our lawmakers and getting them to propose some legislation that isn't good for motorcycling.
It is an example of a knee-jerk reaction where somebody got hurt, and the knee-jerk reaction is if somebody got hurt, well, then somebody's got to pay, and there has to be a law. You know, it's like if somebody is out there doing something horribly illegal, and that illegal activity causes people to be injured or killed, there's going to be a legislator somewhere that says, well, there should be more laws. Well, wait a minute. The person was acting criminally in the first place. Obviously, they weren't going to respond well to the laws we have now. Why would they respond to even more laws? They were already, beyond the control of the law. We've got to recognize that there's things that we can do to help people live better lives, but placing wholesale restrictions on the entire population is not always necessary, and it's not always a good idea. What I tell people is that there's a world of difference between a good, and even if it sounds like a good idea, there's a world of difference between a good idea and a bad law. And we have to be very sensitive about this knee-jerk reaction to things. I know that Second Amendment issues are certainly vulnerable to that kind of rapid, sometimes thoughtless response.
Sure.
Jump in, guys.
Well, we're going to take a short break here in a minute. This is the Roller Restoration of America on Spreaker Radio. We are Patriots on Wheels. I'm John Fireball Anderson with George Tinkham and Mark Morrison, and we will be back in just a few.
Okay, are we off the air now?
Since you've been gone